Advisory services are offered through Creative Financial Designs, Inc., a registered investment advisor, and securities are offered through CFD Investments, Inc., a registered broker-dealer. Member FINRA and SIPC, 2704 South Goyer Road, Kokomo, Indiana, 46902. Phone 765-453-9600. Dussault Financial Services, LLC is not owned or controlled by the CFD companies. Neither Dussault Financial Services nor the CFD companies provide legal or tax advice. Advisor is not registered in all states.
Good evening and welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families.
And I'm Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families. And we are excited to have you join us for the next 30 minutes as we talk about relationships. A huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you to Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. We are so thankful for these businesses who have made this show possible. So whether you are listening live or online, Rock Solid Radio, helping to strengthen our community one family at a time on your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3. Good evening, Eagle Country. Hey, it's Merrill Hutchinson here again with Rock Solid Radio, and we are in part 2 of our financial help podcast, and we have our guest, Mike Dussault. It's Dussault, right?
Dussault, you got it.
Dussault, like you did sell something.
You done sold it.
You done sold it. So, Mike, I just want to thank you for being back with us again for another evening. And to last time we talked a little bit about philosophy of money and just what that does to us, both good and bad. And now we're going to actually get into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts. But I got to read some of your history here, okay? So you're like no rookie to finances, right? You've been 39 years in the financial services industry. You've got your master's from the University of Cincinnati. You taught finance and insurance at Miami. You're a chartered financial consultant. You have a team, right, that you work with. I think it's your son, Kevin, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and that's kind of neat to have your family involved there.
It's unbelievably great to have my son, Kevin, and Holly Wood's office manager working together.
Yeah, very good stuff. And so you guys are located over on the west side of Cincinnati, is that right?
That's right, on the west side, Green Township.
And, we were talking the other day. So you went from... and we can share just briefly a little bit of the story, but you went from losing a lot of stuff in terms of investments and finances and built this business back to $60 million of investments that you guys take care of now. Is that right?
God's blessed the business unbelievably.
Yeah.
So again, I'm just, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm just so thankful where we are today.
And we talked about that in the part 1 show and last week's show. We talked about that, about how we've come through difficult times, challenging times, but having the opportunity to learn from those times and how your heart has changed about money and about people and your empathy, and which has made you a better financial advisor, even though you've got the bumps and bruises, right, that sort of, I think I call that humble pie. You ate another serving of humble pie, right?
I think we could all use a little dose of humility, Hutch. And
I'll give you mine,
I sure can.
I really don't. I don't want any more. Yeah,
I sure can.
Yeah. Well, I always joke about, but I'm serious about it. You seldom see an arrogant old man. Do you?
You tend to be chiseled, molded, shaped, and God uses those hard times to make you better and more humble.
Yeah. And so anyway. We shared last week a little bit about the philosophy and some of your challenges that you guys went through as a family and came through the other side with a different view of money and working with clients. And God has blessed you greatly in your business. And so hey, count the blessings, right? It's a great thing. So tonight we're going to move on and talk a little bit more about, okay, so what do we actually do with our money? But before we do that, I need to appreciate the money that we have here at Rock Solid Radio, and I need to appreciate our sponsors. And so I want to take a minute to thank Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. So those are the sponsors for Rock Solid Radio, and we greatly appreciate their standing behind us and just allowing us deliver the message that we get to every week. And so Linda and I are very thankful. Also, while I'm talking about that, we just want to thank all of our donors. We've had an incredible amount of support come in and see the mission that we have at Rock Solid Families of working with marriages and families and even fitness coaching and all of those things. At Rock Solid Families, we talk about faith, family, and fitness. And one of the things I've always said, Mike, is that the one area that we lack in, and it's the reason why it's not part of our mantra, is that it really should be faith, family, fitness, and finance. But Linda and I don't have the whereabouts to really be knowledgeable or feel like we could go that way. And so those are like four big areas that when we see people struggle, when they walk into our door for coaching services, pretty much, at any time we can put our finger on one, if not more, of those areas: faith, family, fitness, and finance. And so for that reason, we bring you in today. And we want to thank our sponsors and all of our supporters for helping us out. A couple of announcements coming up. We are well now into our Strong Dads podcast. If you have not had an opportunity to hear our podcast, this is with Kyle Crawford, my partner, and we talk all things dad. And I am really getting a kick out of this podcast because Kyle's a neat guy, fireman, paramedic, and I tease him, he's rough and ready. He's a fighter from the sense of getting out in the dirt and actually working literally on the streets and rescuing people and that kind of thing. But mostly we talk about what it means to be the dad and the husband that God's called us to be. And we talk real. We don't candy coat. So if you're there to hear a lot of holy living and holier than thou stuff, you're on the wrong show. We talk about basically things that we fall in and we struggle in. So I encourage you to check into our website at rocksolidfamilies.org, and you can click on our link to the Strong Dads podcast. Also, just a reminder of our ongoing marriage and family coaching services that Linda and I provide on a daily basis. So contact us at 812-576-7625, and we'd love to help you out. All right, so Mike, let's get into what we would kind of think of as the part two. Last time we talked about barriers and obstacles to financial peace. And so let's kind of shift gears a little bit and let's talk more solution-oriented, the tips that we need to give our listeners about really what to do with the money. So what are your thoughts? Help us out.
Well, I'd like to split this up, Hutch, today into two parts. Let's talk first about the typical young person or family. Let's say somebody in their 20s or 30s. So some of the things, again, we're going to repeat what we talked about last show. Mm-hmm. And that is, the emergency fund is just so important, at least 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses. And I recommend a federally insured bank, credit union, or savings and loan for that emergency fund. And again, on the higher end for those that have variable paychecks. Yeah, I think that's real important. So that emergency fund for the young individual or family is just crucial. And again, it's countercultural too.
Yeah. Well, and what's fun, Dave Ramsey talks about that too, and that whole idea that life happens, right? And so if you're living to the zero every week of no money left anywhere, that's just not life. Right, life happens. The tire goes flat. The furnace breaks. It happens, and so just kind of being halfway prepared for that. Right?
And some things are inevitable. You mentioned vehicles, so brakes and tires will wear out.
Yeah, you
and
can
will
predict
have
that.
to be replaced.
Yeah.
That is 100%
That reminds
predictable.
me, I need to get my oil changed. Thank you. I'm overdue.
The one thing is emergency fund for the young individual or family. I think the second big standard recommendation that we have for our young clients is, with a rare exception, have at least $250,000 of individual life insurance, not tied to your employment. Again, many employers are great. They practically give it away sometimes, which is wonderful. Great employer subsidy. But the thing is that that life insurance, that's part of really the foundation of your financial plan, could be changed for example, by the employer, or it could be changed if you go to another employer, even if you're making more money, higher salary.
Right.
Maybe the group life insurance went down from 2 times pay down to 25,000.
Right.
So you take a big hit that way. So standard recommendation, the way it's priced, $250,000 is just to me that's one of the biggest no-brainers that we typically use with our young clients.
And so, if you don't mind, I need to tap in here just a little because I'm not a money and insurance guy, and every talk that I've ever had, the insurance salesman has been able to make me believe what's best, what insurance product. Can you help just clear the water a little bit? What do I look for? You said $250,000, but there's all kinds of things. What should I spend to get that? Like, what's the best value? Can you help me a little bit?
For the typical person that age, Hutch, the most bang for the buck, the lowest cost product is term insurance.
Sure.
And so it's generally the most appropriate. Again, if somebody's got a young family, maybe they just took out a 30-year mortgage within the last year. Well, guess what? Then you've got 29 years to go. You've got a long time before that's going to be paid off. So a lot of times, in growing kids that maybe you want to put through college, whatever. So term insurance typically is the most bang for the buck at that age group. Again, there are definitely places for permanent cash value insurance, for example, in charitable giving, with business owners, with transitioning the business to sell it, for example. And I've had cases like that. So, but generally for the age group that we're talking about first here, generally people in 20s and 30s, term insurance is the way to go.
Okay, so I'm buying my first policy, and a friend of mine or an insurance agent comes to me and is really working me hard for, I think, what's the other stuff? Is it called whole or universal?
Whole life or universal
something?
life, cash value type insurance.
So I should probably steer away from that at this point in the game. Younger couple,
generally speaking, and again, in many or most term products, you could convert to cash value later on if that's appropriate for the circumstances as things change and as the client ages.
So help me out just a little bit. Again, we don't want to make this an entire insurance show, I'm sure, but what is the advantage of like a whole or cash value policy?
Well, you're building up an asset, and depending on how the product is structured with cash value product, you can set yourself up to have permanent insurance that's going to pay a claim, and regardless of when that death would occur. And maybe you've locked in a premium forever, depending on the product. So those would be the examples of a cash value type product.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. That definitely helps. So let's lean towards term early on. So we talked about insurance and companies providing insurance, but what are your thoughts? Like, I think of, when I worked for the school corporation, a lot of people had 401ks and stuff, but I didn't have. We had like a 403b. Okay, so that can be matched by a company. Tell us about like that, and what is that a good value? Is that something we should look at?
That's a huge way to create wealth, Hutch. Great point. And again, we talked about this last show that. What I've seen, again, working with clients for decades, is that in many cases, even though they didn't make a whole lot decades ago, that's the way they really created wealth and financial peace, is by taking advantage of that employer match. So let's say, hypothetically, an employer matches 50 cents on the dollar up to 6% of pay. So that's 3% the employer is giving away. And so by all means, take that. Don't leave that 3% of pay on the table. If somebody has a $50,000 a year salary, there's $1,500. Put that towards retirement in a tax-favored approach. Have it taken out of your paycheck, which is a very disciplined way to save. It's a great way to go. So my standard advice is always get the full employer match before you invest $1 with me.
Yeah. So can you give me, Mike, an idea for somebody who's just making a living, average money? We're not talking about millionaire, billionaire kind of people. We're just talking about people trying to make a living. What percentage of my income should I be looking towards retirement? And I ask that because you said, employee 3%, employer 3%. That's 6%. Is that even going to cut it?
That again, it's a great question, Hutch. And I'm going to go back to our friend and Pastor David Vaughn. He's taught about this. It's really simple. This is an MBA finance stuff. Mm-hmm. He says 10% to God, pay him first.
Okay. 20%
savings, and the rest, for your needs to live. So, in the hypothetical example we just laid out, so you've got 3% on top of the 6%. So. Again, so you've got 50% match on 6% of pay. You're deferring 6% as the employee. Mm-hmm. Employer's putting in 3. There's 9.
Right.
11 more percent do that towards retirement. So that would make up the 20 then in our example that we're talking about.
Right.
And again, you can do that through things like Roth IRA, for example.
Right. So, your other investments that you don't need to put your fingers on, right?
Exactly.
Not liquid.
Exactly. Your market for retirement.
Right.
And that's the only way to approach it, really.
Okay. So, we're looking at, for that retirement conversation, we're looking at trying to get 20% or so protected and put into that nest egg, right?
Yeah, 20% is a great standard to go by. Great starting point.
Good deal. Well, you just mentioned something about a Roth IRA. Help me out. I've got an IRA. I've got a Roth IRA. These for us non-financial people, you're just spinning me up in circles. So show me what's going on with these things.
Yeah. So we'll try to take the gobbledygook away. So with the Roth IRA, let's talk about the bad news first. It does not help you from a tax standpoint when you put the money in. So let's say, for example. By contrast, you're in a 401k and you're taking those dollars out from your paycheck pre-tax. So then you're reducing your taxable income on that, pre-tax 401k contribution that you're making.
Right
so
off
again,
the bat.
Yeah, exactly.
Right off the bat,
so let's give an example. Again, person's making $50,000 a year and they're deferring, 6% of pay, let's say, to get that employer match. So 6% on $50,000 is $3,000. So their taxable income in that example would be $47,000, not $50,000.
That I get taxed
So in
on.
contrast, though, with the Roth, if that same client, let's say, didn't do the 401k, but they're doing the Roth, same client making $50,000. Maybe they don't have a 401k at work. Mm-hmm. They're doing the Roth instead. So in my example, let's say that person, again, maybe it's a young person, they can put $6,000 a year in the Roth if they're eligible. Mm-hmm. So they don't reduce their taxable income. That's the bad news. But here's the good news. If you wait the longer of age 59 and a half or 5 years from account inception, then the dollars are tax-free when you take them out in retirement. So
which
what
is
a huge advantage.
Hopefully a much larger number then, right? It's growing over all those years.
Well, hopefully for decades, exactly.
Right. Okay. So, so I save potentially much larger money on the backside of that because it's been growing.
Well, again, hopefully it grows, again, if history is any guide. So, and again, if you can wait till 59 and a half and kind of earmark those dollars mentally, hey, I can't touch this before 59 and a half.
Right.
Because otherwise I lose that power of compound interest that we've talked about. Then it can be tremendously powerful. So, and the other thing to think about with that, what happens if tax rates go up in the future? Well, guess what? If the dollars are coming out tax-free during retirement, it's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Whereas on your pre-tax 401k dollars, you may feel some sting, if tax rates rise later on, decades down the road.
Okay. So we said Roth IRA, then what is an IRA?
So traditional IRA would work like pre-tax 401k.
Kind of like the 401k.
If you're eligible again.
Gotcha.
In our example, again, let's use the person that makes $50,000 a year. They're putting $6,000 into a traditional IRA pre-tax. Their taxable income goes from $50,000 down to $44,000 in our example.
Gotcha.
But the bad news of that is it's just the flip side
when
of the
you
Roth.
go to pull it out later.
Taxable on the back end, exactly. Yeah. And if you pull it out before 59 and a half age, there's a 10% tax penalty generally, with a few exceptions.
Okay. So you keep using the word if a person is eligible. Can you help me a little bit of what that means? How do I have to be eligible?
Well, there are eligibility requirements when it comes to income. So, for example, many of my clients make too much money to be able to put $1 into a Roth IRA.
Okay.
So, that's one element. And again, the other thing, so always seek tax advice, before you do it. So work with your trusted tax advisor on that. So that would be one easy one where somebody's not eligible even if they want to do it and have the financial means to do it. They may not be eligible because of income.
Okay. Now, I've heard that, so I get all excited about this. I'm going to start my retirement, and maybe I've got a little nest egg, and I just want to take that whole nest egg and put it in at one time just to get started. There's a limit to how much I can put in,
well,
right?
Exactly. It's $6,000 per year for those under 50. Per person. So again, a husband and wife could do $12,000 per tax year in that example.
Okay, so it's per person.
Both are eligible. And then for those age 50 and over, it's $7,000 for 50 and over. So hypothetically, we've got two 55-year-olds still working, and they have to have the earned income to support it on the Roth contribution. That couple could put, hypothetically, assuming eligible, $14,000 a year for tax year.
Yeah. And if we start to run that out through 20, 30 years, it starts to add up, right? That's the whole idea.
Huge. Stack them one on top of the other, compound interest. Again, God willing, if past performance is any indicator, which of course, again, past performance doesn't necessarily guarantee future, but we can look at the past.
Yeah. I feel like I need to touch on this because there's a panic that comes when the market gets a little shaky. All of a sudden, we've been in a strong market for quite a while overall, a strong market. And we know there's a correction coming, right? It's just kind of the nature of the beast. We're going to see a correction. I remember in 2008, 2009, I think it lost almost 50% of its value, right? It was like
it's a big correction. The worst since the Great Depression.
Yeah.
So it caused a lot of pain.
So, what should I do during these times? Should I panic, or what? How do I look at the market? Because I've heard of guys being like day traders. They look at the moment, right? So how do I approach and feel secure with putting this money away till I'm 59 and a half?
Yeah, that's a great question. And just interesting aside, you don't hear too much about the vast majority of day traders who don't make money.
Right.
To the point, the market timing to me is a fool's game. And I'll look a client in the eye and say, hey, I'm not smart enough to predict when that 10 or 20% stock correction is going to occur. Mm-hmm. I don't know, and guess what? Nobody else does either.
It's so funny that
Exactly.
Everyone's always trying to pencil in on the calendar what day that's going to happen, and it is. It's worse than trying to predict the weather, right?
The crystal ball gets even cloudier than the weather to the point. So I think the best way to approach it, is the time until you're going to need the money to withdraw the money actually. And again, in our example, let's say if somebody in their 20s or 30s, that's decades down the road until age 59 and a half. So the only way to look at it really, I think, is when the market's down, again, not if, but when, and you're making those contributions, let's say to a Roth IRA that we've talked about, or the 401k, getting the employer match. When the market's down, you're buying more shares on sale.
Yeah.
That's the only way to look at it. And just keep plugging. This is the only industry I know where people are reluctant to buy what's on sale.
Yeah.
So think about any other product or service, whether it's cars or clothing. You want to buy what's on sale. So I think we should look at that in terms of investments.
Yeah, which speaks to the relative ignorance and fear from the ignorance. We're like, oh my gosh, things are crashing. I'm not going in that store. No, it's crashing, so you go in and grab, right?
Buy it on sale and exactly balance out that fear and greed and steady mindset, and I think is the only way to approach it.
Yeah. So those are some great things. The IRAs and just trying to figure out what I need to do with my money and the insurance. But what are some other things that we need to make sure that our listeners hear, that we need to get a grip on, right? If we're going to even have a chance here at managing our money and not being managed by our money, what are some other things that we need to look to do?
Yeah, again, I think, again, just finishing up on the younger folks, people in their 20s and 30s, again, we talked briefly about it, but college debt, I think, is huge, a huge area to focus on. And again, one piece of advice that I use, and you see it a lot in the trade press, is that I think it's just sound advice. And that's this. So if we've got somebody who's just starting out college, and what I would say is, whether it takes 4 or 5 years, and I know 5 years is increasingly common.
I packed my 4 years into 5.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Stretch it out a little bit. And that's all too common. But however long it takes, by the time you're done with that degree, and by all means get that degree, don't go halfway if you can avoid it. But by the time you get out, don't have the accumulated debt for all those years be more than what you expect to make first year salary with that degree.
Okay.
So again, example, somebody is getting out of college and they're going to make $55,000 a year in their job with their bachelor's degree, let's say. So what I would say is by all means, don't let that accumulated debt for college exceed $55K. If that means working part-time, if that means starting a year later, like my granddaughter expects to do, I think that those are great choices.
Yeah. So that's just a good little formula that you put out there. The 4 years or the college debt total should not outdo your first year salary.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And of course, it's increasingly common to see that guideline being viviolated, so it just presents all kind of challenges and gets in the way of financial peace.
Yeah, I mean, I know people who came through the teaching world, and some of our newer teachers that came out and went to a school that they wanted to go to and whatever, but they graduated with $40,000+ of debt, and they're starting out at $35,000, and they're panicked because we talk about the millennial that still lives in their parents' house and they're 28 years old. That's a good way for you to live that life, right?
Absolutely.
Be taking on a job that's going to pay less than your total debt per year of school. And it's just, I do look at this as this is kind of bad parenting advice to encourage your kids to go to school for the sake of school and not understand what the debt is going to do. It's bad parenting. Oh, you just need to go to school. No, let's go to school wisely, right? Because that weight hanging around your neck for the next 30, 40 years is going to hinder how you can live your life. You become slave, right, to that debt. And what a shame.
That's a big one.
God doesn't call us to be a slave, does he?
Exactly.
So, parents, please, if you listen to this. I know, and you did say, Mike, that idea. Yeah, go to school. But this is where we start to get more creative of how we're going to go, whether it's a trade school, whether it is a community college of sort, whether we get part of the degree while we're in high school through dual credit hours and stuff like that. But what we did 30 years ago, I was an undecided major for 2 years. I would never let my kid do that today.
Exactly.
I could afford that then, okay? And I didn't graduate with too much debt. No way, not today. 2 years of an undecided major bounced around the hallways at school.
If that means wait.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, and I don't want to ignore Hutch. I know we don't have much time in our segment tonight, but again, for the folks in the older age group, the things they should be looking at, and we look at a lot. We've got some great software with some help. Kevin is particularly good at it. Office Manager Holly helps me prepare for cases as well. But we're working for the older folks approaching retirement. Let's say, again, people in their 50s and up, is Social Security timing is a real key. We look at software on that and do what-if analysis on it to say, what if I start Social Security 62 versus 70? How does that impact the chances that I'm going to run out of money before retirement? So we help people, give them the numbers on that, and that's one of the key things we do for the folks in that age group. And then the other thing is, okay, where's my money coming from? What are the sources of the money in retirement? And then also the distribution planning side of it. Where do I take my money from? What source?
Right.
And we have to take taxes into account, how those assets and distributions are taxed when we pull them out for retirement. So again, generally, like Roth IRAs that we've talked about, are going to be last. So these are the things we talk about as we work with our older clients.
Yeah. Well, it gets pretty personal, and so at that point, I want to share your contact information if that's okay.
Sure.
Right?
Well,
because
sure.
I think that's a very one-on-one conversation. Everybody's situation is slightly different. So, Mike, your number that folks can reach you at is 513-574-8594. Or they can email you at mike@dusoldfinancial.com. Dusold is DUSOLD. DuSoldFinancial.com. Or I think you guys have a website too, right? Isn't that
we do.
Dusold?
DuSoldFinancial.com.
Yeah.
And again, there's no cost or obligation on an initial consultation. And when you do contact us, please mention that you are a Rock Solid Families listener.
Thank
And
you. Yeah.
I also invite you to, like Connie and I, become a donor to Rock Solid Families Ministry.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate what you and Linda and your ministry is impacting people's lives.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. So we just want to sign off for the night. We want to thank Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. I hope you found this information helpful. Mike, I want to thank you very much for your time and the efforts that you put into helping people through this challenging topic. So as for that, we're going to sign off. Have a great evening.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. For help or more information about what you've heard this evening, contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org or call us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-ROCK. Again, a huge thanks to our sponsors, Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. If you have questions you'd like answered on air, or you want to chime in on something you've heard this evening, go to our Facebook page, Rock Solid Families. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to tune in next Sunday evening at 7:30 for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and for my husband Merrill and I, thanks for tuning in to your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3.
Advisory services are offered through Creative Financial Designs, Inc., a registered investment advisor, and securities are offered through CFD Investments, Inc., a registered broker-dealer. Member FINRA and SIPC, 2704 South Goyer Road, Kokomo, Indiana, 46902. Phone 765-453-9600. Dusold Financial Services, LLC is not owned or controlled by the CFD companies. Neither Dusold Financial Services nor the CFD companies provide legal or tax advice. Advisor is not registered in all states.